Subscribe the Unique Academy's YouTube channel and press the bell icon for latest updates and videos.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So from this, what I gather is this is your fifth attempt.
Yes, sir.
And your first interview?
Sir, this is my third interview.
Okay. You have done 2 interviews before this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what went wrong at that level?
Sir, I think I was not that expressive in my first and second interview.
Even for?
Sir, I was not that expressive in my first and second interviews.
In both your interviews. Okay.
Yes.
And in all your 5 attempts, political science has been your optional.
Yes, sir.
You have not changed your optional at all.
No, sir.
Okay. So, just to put things in some sort of perspective, why did you decide to make this change from, you have done electronics and telecommunication engineering?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and what I gather is after having had finished your engineering, you had also started working.
Yes, sir.
It was an MNC?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And from whatever has been there in the form, it seems that you worked for a year and a couple of months after that, and then you dropped out.
Yes,
And
sir.
immediately after that, you started appearing for your civil services.
Yes,
Huh?
sir.
So why did you make this shift?
So, firstly, if I talk about the opportunities which civil services provide, it is a unique platform where I can achieve both social service along with professional excellence. That was something missing in the private sector. And even during my job profile, I underwent training in Sikandrabad for Indian Railways. So there I realized that there is immense opportunities if I come to civil services and work for the growth and development of the country. So, sir, this is the main reason I quit my job and started preparing for civil service.
Okay. So this signaling that we are essentially talking about as part of your job is essentially about railway signaling.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what did your job entail exactly?
Sir, I was an assistant railway signaling engineer, and as it is mentioned in that, I was working for Atkins Global. I was working for UK railway signaling, and my task was to work on a micro station software. And there was an in-house training for 3 months, and we have undergone training also in the Sikandrabad Indian Railways training also. So we were basically dealing with their software micro station and dealing with the placement of various equipments for the railway lines for the UK railways.
This would be in the United Kingdom.
Yes, sir. United Kingdom.
Okay. So it's quite a journey, it seems, all the way from Jabalpur to Bangalore to Secunderabad, working for the United Kingdom Railways. Quite places. It's like someone who has gone places. Huh? So
Yes, sir.
after that, you decide that one of the best ways by which you can contribute to growth and development. So you talked about something called as growth and development.
Yes, sir.
So, but then you said growth and development of the country. So when one is looking at growth and development of the country, is one essentially talking about the economy, or is one essentially talking about something else other than that?
Sir, both the economic perspective as well as the the social development.
Okay. Just because of the fact that you brought it up,
Yes, sir.
in the present COVID crisis that we have been witnessing, are 2 countries which seem to have performed not so well to the liking of the people living in those countries. Surprisingly, are Britain and India. Huh? So both in Britain as well as in India, we come across almost the same set of problems, issues, the way in which the administration has tackled it, a certain sort of problem at the level of communication between state and society. Is there something which is common to the two systems because of which this has happened? Or is it something that one can say that, well, the outcome seems to be the same, but the reasons are different?
Sir, I would like to humbly disagree because in case of Britain and India, there is a vast difference if we talk about the fatality rate and the COVID cases in both the countries. Also, the initial reaction of the heads of the two countries, that was totally different. And but if I talk about the measures which both the countries are taking, especially India, India has taken so many measures for the welfare of the people. So starting from the March itself, we have come up with a special package in the form of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. Also, there is a parallel in Britain. They are providing unemployment wages to the people because of the loss of jobs during this crisis times. So yes, sir, there are some similarities, but I think I'll put India on a very good aspect if we compare it with Britain. And India has taken very significant steps. But considering the large population which we have and the socio-economic condition of the people, the numbers are rising. But the government is tackling that challenge very well.
It's tackling it very well. But that doesn't seem to be the way in which people are looking at it. So if one looks at it from this perspective, that the way in which people feeling safe about it. So one knows for sure that as far as the British government's response is concerned, the British people do not feel safe at all about the way in which the government has gone about handling things. Can one say that people in India feeling safe about the way in which the Indian government has been handling things?
So initially there were some concerns regarding the migrant issues, but I think people are feeling very safe with the way the government has tackled the issue. And sir, India has so many state governments, so it also depends, along with the steps taken by the center government, it also depends upon the steps taken by the state governments, various state governments. So, for example, if I talk about the Delhi, so there were some issues in the Delhi government, and we have seen the rising number of cases in Delhi. So the center government has intervened there so as to assure the people that both the center and state governments will collaborate to ensure the safety of the people and to fight the crisis. So, sir, on a broader level, I'll say yes, people are feeling safe, and people are like they are feeling safe with the steps government has taken in the form of the packages, also the steps taken by the RBI and the fiscal the stimulus package which amounts for around 10% of our GDP. So these are some of the steps which government is taking.
Overall, you would say that people feel safe about whatever has been done.
Yes, sir, to a certain extent, yes.
But how do we ascertain something like this in the Indian case? Because in the British case, there's a continuous system of collating public opinion through various sorts of surveys, through various sorts of polls and public opinion surveys and so on and so forth. How does one do that in the Indian case?
So even India is a mature democracy, and if people would have not been satisfied with the government actions, there must have been some action by the civil society. But I don't see any such action. Yes, there are some challenges, especially with the migrant issue. Initially, there were some challenges, but I can say the government has done really well. And if we see the agricultural growth or the rural growth, so that is very good in the present times, even after the COVID crisis and so much of lockdown in the country. The agricultural growth is still intact. So we can say that government has taken measures for the welfare of the people.
Okay. But just because of the fact that something has not been said, we are assuming that everything is all right.
So I'm not saying that 100% things are all right. There are some issues and there will be some issues because, sir, India is such a vast country. But yes, more steps needs to be taken to ensure the safety of the people.
Okay. You referred to the different sorts of packages. You referred to the different sorts of measures being taken by the state. But one of the most important problems that we seem to be facing is, as far as the present situation is concerned, this is what is called as a situation of collapse of demand. So there's hardly any demand which is now left as far as the Indian economy is concerned. And I don't know if you have come across a criticism which says most of the government of India's measures and packages amount to a stimulus on the supply side. So this is not going to do anything as far as demand is concerned. So how does one look at this situation as such?
So, firstly, if I talk about the package, government is working on various sectors. So these packages, they will not give the result, like they will not give the result in the short term, but they are based on the long-term measures. But on the short-term measures, also government is taking various steps. If I talk about increasing the pay for Manrega workers, increasing allocation for the MG Narega, and also various reforms in the agricultural sector. So that itself will lead to increasing in the demand. And with the unlock mechanism which government has adopted, gradually demand will increase. So this is a cumulative process and changes will take time.
You have any idea about how much time are we looking at?
No, sir, I am not sure of this.
You're not sure. Okay, okay. You come from Madhya Pradesh,
Yes, sir.
state which is absolutely important as far as the whole range of agricultural commodities in India are concerned. And there has been a record production of wheat. There has been a record production of soybean. There has been a record production of quite a number of agricultural commodities. If the
Yes.
farmer is not able to realize a price which has been announced by the government for a particular season for a particular crop, so is there some mechanism by which the Madhya
Yes.
Pradesh government tries to bridge up?
Yes, sir. Sir, I talked about it, sir. It's a Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana, price deficit mechanism.
Okay. And is it yet working?
Sir, I'm not sure of that, but it was there with the past BJP government was there. It was there.
But presently, you have no idea about is it in
No, sir.
force for the season? Is something being done on that count?
No, sir, I'm not aware of this.
You're not aware of this as of now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the present migrant workers reverse migration that took place in so many parts of India, you have any idea about how many workers did Madhya Pradesh receive from the different parts of India?
Yes, sir.
How many?
Sir, it was under 10 lakhs.
It was under 10 lakhs.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, but
Huh.
sorry to interrupt, sir, but if I account for the migrants of other states also, since Madhya Pradesh was on the way, so more number will be there if I add on that.
Obviously, nobody's denying that. And you have any idea about what was the nature of intrastate migration as far as Madhya Pradesh is concerned? So workers, say from Indore and regions around it, moving towards the northeastern and the northern regions of Madhya Pradesh and so on and so forth?
Sir, I'm not aware of the details.
You're not aware of the details?
No, sir.
Okay. When you look at Madhya Pradesh, it's a state which has come quite a long way. Okay.
Yes.
And especially when it comes to the present COVID crisis as such, what are the areas that you would look at as someone who is a prospective civil servant that the Madhya Pradesh government needs to work on to, in some way or the other, fire all engines as far as the economy is concerned?
So first and foremost, I think more and more emphasis on industrial development should be there, because
Okay.
our industrial development is not up to the mark if I compare with the neighboring prosperous states like Maharashtra and Gujarat. So that
Okay.
workers, migrants, they can get job in the state itself if there is more of industrial development in the state. And sir, also better air connectivity should be there. Sir, Madhya Pradesh has only one international airport in Indore. So more and more better air connectivity should be there so as to boost the investor sentiment also. Easy connectivity to our state. And so with
Okay.
the initiatives like Atmanirbhar Bharat, Madhya Pradesh can become a logistic hub because it is centrally located in the heart of India. So it can gain advantage from that.
No, dear, but for that to happen, for any
Yes, sir.
state of that nature which has to benefit out of something that you're talking about, we need also to be focusing on what is called as infrastructure development.
Yes, sir.
So, you have any idea about the Madhya Pradesh government's thrust on building roads, bridges? As far as the state itself is concerned, what's the state of the state highways?
Sir, our road density is very good. I'm not exactly aware of the data, but if I talk about the road density and the state highways, they are in good shape. But the air connectivity, that is somewhere lacking in our state. So that needs to be worked. And more, like the power connectivity, especially in some of the regions like Bundelkhand or the Chambal region, that has to be ensured so that there is a balanced regional growth in all the areas of Madhya Pradesh. So government is recently coming up with some road project in the Chambal region. So as to
But
give
you're
a
not sure about the details as such.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And when it comes to the education sector, especially if one is talking about all these types of developments, if one is looking at industrial development, one also has to be focusing on something that is called as education. Because until and unless you don't have adequately skilled people, there's just no way by which you can benefit out of something like that. So you're satisfied with whatever initiatives have been undertaken by the Madhya Pradesh government as far as higher education, especially higher education in the state is concerned. And can you name a couple of initiatives for me?
Sir, I need some few seconds to think.
Okay, go ahead, think of them.
So, for higher education, IITs have been come up in Madhya Pradesh, and also IIMs have been
But
opened.
IITs and IIMs are basically central government initiatives.
Yes, sir.
You're essentially looking at state government. Is the state government doing something in terms of tangibly promoting higher education in the state with the idea that it has to create an absolutely skilled workforce?
So, there is a global skill park which is being coming in Bhopal, so as to
Okay.
give vocational training to the students, especially the college pass out students. So, it is one of its kind of initiative in India. So, it will provide skill to the youth so as to increase their employability. And sir, some IT parks are also coming in Indore. So, sir, these are some of the initiatives to enhance the skills of the students, especially after the college.
Okay. And sir, can you tell me something about this problem which is happening on the Korean Peninsula? Are you aware of what exactly is happening over here and why exactly is it that it is happening in the way in which it is happening? You have any idea about what is
Yes.
it that we are talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So what can you tell me about what is happening and why is whatever is happening?
So, there were some talks between the USA and North Korea to diffuse the tensions, but those could not result into some kind of any tangible results. And recently, the trigger point was the leaflets, which were against the North Korean government and which raised the tensions across the border. And the North Korea has said that it will militarize the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea. But sir, recently in the newspaper, I have read that North Korea has said that it will not do anything like militarization of the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea. But yes, the issues have not been resolved between the between the two countries.
Obviously, there's a long problem of not resolved issue which is going on. The reason
Yes,
why I came up with this is I was just thinking at the back of my mind of something that is very similar. Okay,
yes,
in the way in which things are happening in the Korean Peninsula and things are happening in, say, for example, South Asia between
Yes,
India and China. So this whole posturing on the frontiers, this whole idea of borders which are not well demarcated and so on and so forth. So it was just in the light of that one was thinking about it. The immediate trigger point is the leaflets which were circulated from South Korea into North Korea.
North Korea. Yes.
Was the South Korean government involved in it?
No, sir. So government is in fact raising concerns regarding the people who have raised such leaflets, and they'll take action also, and it is communicated to the North Korean government also that it will take
So who are
stringent.
these people who are floating the leaflets?
So these people, they are against the North Korean government. Sir,
Yeah, but are they North Koreans or are they South Koreans?
I'm not aware of this.
Okay. Madhya Pradesh in the recent past had this dubious honor of presenting an example. One of the latest examples, if need ever was of it, of something that possibly is broken as far as Indian democracy is concerned.
Yes.
So you had an election in December 2018. You had a political party which lost the election. You had the opposition forming the government, and then you had all sorts of political machinations which were happening both within the opposition as well as within the ruling party. And as a consequence of it, a couple of months down the line, we are in this pretty funny situation wherein the government has been booted out of power. There are significant vacancies in the Madhya Pradesh Assembly because people have been forced out of their positions, and there are pending by-elections to almost 24 seats in the Assembly. Now, and it just happened that Madhya Pradesh became an example of it. You can talk of any state in India and you have this sort of persistent political instability which is visible. Any idea about why in the present in which we are in the 21st century, are state governments in India laboring under something called as political instability?
So, firstly, if I talk about the laws, sir, anti-defection law, that has not been effective to tackle such issues of political defections. So, secondly, the aspirations of the candidates or the legislature themselves who do not have any loyalty towards one particular party or who do not abide by the election manifesto of one particular party. And so, thirdly, the criminalization of politics and money and muscle power, which plays an important role in such defections. Sir, I can think of these three reasons, and sir, I'll add one more, sir, lack of intra-party democracy in the political parties. So that is also creating such defections.
Okay. No, but this is not just a problem of defections. There is a persistent sort of instability. There's an air of instability. It seems
Yes,
that
yes.
though the voter has made his choice clear, somehow or the other it doesn't seem that the voter's choice is going to hold. It seems at some point of time or the other, the voter's choice is just going to be, shooed away, and you're going to have a completely different formation which is going to go ahead and form the government. So, and okay, if these are the reasons that you see because of which all of this is happening, how does one go about fixing this up? Is there a way by which this can be fixed?
So, firstly, we should reform the anti-defection law.
Like,
And so, suppose the candidates who have been moved out of the party, if not defected, and then they are again allowed to contest for the by-elections. So, the law is not barring them to again come to power with ministerial words. So, even Supreme Court has suggested that they should be barred from contesting by-elections. So, we have seen in the case of Karnataka also the members who were defected, they again contested for the by-elections and they got some ministerial posts. So
that's hardly going to make a difference. Like if you decide that this is the sort of reform that we are going to conduct to this law, all that we are going to have, as has also been done in a number of cases, is people are going to push in their kith and kin into this entire idea. So, okay, yes, if the law says that I cannot contest a by-election, but the law doesn't stop my wife from contesting it, possibly doesn't start my son from contesting it and starting a new political career.
sir, I agree, but at least it will create some sort of deterrence.
No, that's exactly the problem that we have. We have been looking at deterrence in the context of a problem here and now, with no idea about this as to the way in which India's political class, okay, is quite capable of circumventing a law.
Yes.
So, if you look at the fact that the anti-defection law was legislated in the 1990s, and bang, a couple of months down the line, they started finding ways to move around the law.
Yes, sir.
है ना? So, in that sort of a situation, this is okay. This is one reform. Is there any other reform that comes to your mind?
Sir, the role of speaker, because ultimately speaker is deciding whether it is a defection or a resignation. So,
Mm-hmm.
sir, like in case of Britain, we have the speaker's position as neutral. Sir, but in case of India, the speaker has allegiance to some of the parties, ruling party. So, sir, reforming the position of role of speaker, or in case of anti-defection, the final judgment should be done by the president or the governor on the recommendation of the Election Commission of India. Sir, in case of defection.
But presidents and governors also are at the behest of the government which is in power. They don't operate independently in the Indian constitutional scheme of things.
So, but they will be acting on the recommendation of the Election Commission, and we have seen the credentials of the Election Commission in conducting elections. So, sir,
Agreed, but there's a way of dealing with this. So, for example, even if the election commission says that a certain member should be disqualified, and the president doesn't sign on the dotted line in a specific period of time, how does it work? I'm like particularly worried about the fact that if are you aware of the Rajya Sabha elections which were recently conducted?
yes, sir.
Madhya Pradesh voted for 3 members,
Yes,
and especially the Rajya Sabha elections which were conducted in this northeastern state called as Manipur,
yes,
where apparently the government has lost its majority in the house,
majority.
and yet they could manage to get their man through.
Yes,
So in that sort of a situation, it's like a pretty dicey sort of a situation that we are essentially talking about. Yeah, even in the British parliamentary scheme of things, the speaker does belong to a political party, but nevertheless, they have been lucky enough to have speakers who have the gumption to stand up to both the political opposition, but also to the ruling benches. So and uphold the precedences of their offices, the tradition and the prerogatives of their offices. So it ultimately depends on the personality of the individual rather than what is a power that he has been endowed with. It's a question of the sort of personality that he has. Is he really an independent minded person? And it works slightly differently. Okay. On completely different matters, on completely different issues. Acha, what do you do with your spare time? You said you do something called as paper mache work.
Yes, sir.
And you have been holding expositions of this?
No, sir, I have not done that, but I'm using it for my home decoration purposes. Sir,
Okay. And what are the favorite things that you do with it? What are the most? So if someone gives you paper mache,
Yes.
what is the form that you are most possibly going to come up with?
So the easiest thing to make is, sir, the pen holder or the keychain holder. So
Okay.
the torrents, gate torrents are there. Fruit basket can be made easily from that. So these are some of the things which I can make easily in less time.
Okay. And how much time do you spend doing this?
Sir, it depends if I'm making a very big item or a short item. So a pen holder can be made in an hour or two. It will not take much time.
Okay. Quite interesting. You found time for cycling during the COVID lockdown?
No, sir, as there were restrictions and even my parents were very cautious, so I did not go for cycling. But yes, with the unlock 1.0, I started cycling.
Okay. You have any idea about whether the Tour de France will happen this year?
Yes, sir, it is cancelled this year.
Okay. Now I would ask Tukaram sir to take over, and maybe at some later point of time I would join this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hi, Anil sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. There is no doubt that Jainism celebrates so many values, and one of the core values celebrated by Jainism happens to be non-violence. Okay,
Yes.
and Gandhi was deeply influenced by the principle of non-violence. Now, if you are asked to compare between the Jaina principle of non-violence and the one which was adopted by Gandhi. Can we say that both were one and the same, or was there any difference?
Sir, I think both were same to a certain extent because Gandhiji was inspired by the philosophy of non-violence from Jainism itself. And both the philosophies believe that non-violence should be believed in not only actions but also in thoughts and deeds. So, in that extent, both were same. So, but if I talk about Jainism, it is very extreme, and Gandhiji propagated non-violence in the political arena, while Jainism talks about non-violence even on the personal level, like the various personal habits, eating, occupation. In that aspect, also, Jainism has a profound importance for non-violence. But as far as Gandhiji is concerned, his idea of non-violence was to achieve freedom struggle.
Okay, so that was the difference. Any
Yes,
other
sir.
difference? Any other difference as far as
Uh,
Gandhian idea is concerned?
Sir, I am not able to think of any difference right now.
Okay. See, in 1942,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Quit India movement, uh, Gandhi did say do or die.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can we say that Gandhi deviated from the idea of non-violence?
Sir, I think no, because non-violence does not mean cowardice. And for the greater violence of the state, British at that time, Gandhiji propagated this do or die concept. So it was for the welfare and self-esteem of the people of India that he suggested do or die. So it was very much in lines of non-violence because Gandhiji often propagated that while practicing non-violence, you have to be very brave, you have to be fearless, and it does not mean that you're a coward person.
Okay. Now, if you are asked today to identify the relevance of the principle of non-violence as was perceived by, understood by Gandhi in the context of present reality,
Yes.
so how would you uh, state that or underline that?
So, firstly, if I talk about the serious issues which our humanity is facing, terrorism, so which is based on the ideology of violence. So, non-violence promotes love, compassion towards other citizens, other people. So, if that philosophy is propagated and people imbibe by that, then we would not be witnessing terrorism. So, secondly, the issue of COVID crisis which we are seeing. So, non-violence plays an important role. So, we have seen the case of the issue of the wild animals in China, which because of which the virus originated from the wet markets of China. So, the principle of non-violence could have been of great help if compassion would have been shown there also. And sir, thirdly, in regard of climate change and environmental sustainability also, the principle of non-violence holds very significance.
Okay, so this is how you would point out the relevance of principle of non-violence.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let us focus on the first point of relevance as identified by you. Okay, propagation of the message of love, etc., etc. But do you think that is really a feasible way of approaching the thing?
So, if people have compassion for other beings, then the hatred amongst other
I,
different people that
I think that is what we are missing.
yes, sir. Sir, so with effective use of non-violence as a technique, so that can be promoted. So right from the childhood or the education systems should be reformed in such a manner that such teachings can be imbibed at the very early age, so that we do not witness such radicalization of the people or the youth who are joining various terrorist organizations.
Now, can you cite out some example, concrete example?
So in this case, for
Yes,
non-violence.
yes, yes.
So, in the school, if such values are promoted through the examples of Gandhiji or the other leaders like Martin Luther King, so children will. I know there are already such teachings being propagated in a school, but that should be done on a more advanced stage so that students learn at the early age the importance of such values in our life. So because education system is not only about the technical knowledge, it is also about the moral value system.
So we can use education or education system to imbibe the value.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. See, in one of the earlier question, sir did refer to something called as the speaker, the institution of speaker in
Yes, sir.
UK. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, do we have any difference between the institution of speaker uh, in the system of UK on one hand and the Indian parliamentary system on the other hand?
So in UK, the speaker has to resign from the political party.
Okay.
And so while in the Indian case, this is not the case.
Okay.
And sir, so this is the major difference.
And do you think that this peculiarity which is there in UK makes a difference as far as the functioning of the institution is concerned?
Yes, sir, to a certain extent, since the speaker is not bound by the ideals of any particular political party, he acts independently based on his rationality and integrity. While in case of India, since the party obedience is there, even so, speaker takes decision based on the party lines, and it is not independent decision.
Okay. So that has definitely have a bearing on the functioning of the institution of speaker as far as UK is concerned.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. See, in September 2019, if I am not wrong, the date was 17th of September. The Supreme Court of UK came up with a judgment in regard with prorogation of UK Parliament. Are you aware of that?
Sir, I could not follow that news.
Sorry.
Sir, I did not follow that
Okay,
news.
okay. Fine. So let us keep it aside. Uh, if you are asked in the context of whatever is going on since last more than 3 months, uh, about 3 months, let us say, uh, about the public health system in India, and just identify very precisely the 4 problems. What would be those problems?
So, firstly, the number of doctors. Secondly, number of beds or infrastructural issues. Thirdly, the sanitation, especially in the case of Dharavi, which we have seen. So that also it makes difficult for the public health system to cope with the crisis. And
I think these are quite related.
yes, sir.
So the
Yes, sir.
first is the number of doctors we have. Second,
Yes, sir.
the bed. Okay, and then the
Yes,
other.
sir.
Okay. Anything else?
The funding in the Indian healthcare system, sir, that is very low. It is less than 2%.
Less than
So
2%.
that impacts the overall functioning of the public health in India.
Okay. Now, do you think that making right to health a fundamental right would make any difference as far as public investment in the public sector is concerned?
Sir, definitely, if we make right to health as a fundamental right, there will be more responsibility for the government to cater to the needs of the various sections of the society, and government will be obliged to give the adequate health facilities to the people. So, sir, it will definitely lead to more investments in the public health if we make right to health as a fundamental right.
Okay, so certain commensurate measures will have to be taken up by the government. So that would definitely make a difference.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let us specifically focus on the way in which the COVID crisis has influenced women in India in general. So you can just point out various aspects of the way in which women in general been influenced. So 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 things.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, firstly, domestic violence has increased because of the present crisis and lockdown.
Now, do we have any concrete evidence to say that?
So, yes, sir, National Commission of Women, it suggested that the number of reports have increased by twice in the lockdown period.
Okay.
So, sir, domestic violence has increased. Secondly, the mental health of women, that is also impacted. So, thirdly, if I talk about the lower income families or the poor families, then the nutritional level or the basic food which women consume the lockdown period, that was also declined. So, fourthly, the mobility of the women because of the lockdown, that is also impacted.
What was that? What was the fourth one?
The mobility of women.
Mobility of women.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are as if the 4 ways in which women been influenced, impacted, let us say.
Yes, sir.
Now, how do you see down the lines, let us say after 1 month or 2 months, once the lockdown is completely lifted, let us say, how do you perceive the impact of the lockdown down the lines after 1 and 2 months as far as women in India is concerned? Again, in general, very general.
So, women, since the mobility will increase, they can raise their voice and they can approach the institutional mechanism for against any domestic violence issues.
Okay.
Thirdly, they will be in a position, like for working women, especially from the lower middle class families, so they can rejoin their work. So they will, it will help in enhancing their income, monthly income. So that will impact the overall health and the food intake of the women and the family as a whole. And so, thirdly, sir, these are the main things I can think of right
Do
now.
you see any impact as far as employment is concerned, jobs are concerned?
Sir, yes, there is a decline in the women participation, but I think with the reversal of the lockdown, there will be more opportunities even for the women. So gradually that will increase after 2 or 3 months.
Okay, so you are very, very hopeful about that. That will
Yes, sir.
definitely increase. That will go up.
Yes, sir.
Uh, do we have still the Fasal Bima Yojana in place?
Oh, sorry, sir.
Do
I
have,
can't.
do we have Fasal Bima Yojana still in place?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay,
there.
okay. And what has been the state of Fasal Bima as far as your state is concerned?
So, in Madhya Pradesh, Fasal Bima Yojana has been of great use, especially it provides insurance to the farmers against the vagaries of nature. And so, in the present times, there were locust attack also in our state. So, this scheme can be of great use for the farmers. And so, with the use of technology, farmers are able to get the benefits of the scheme easily. So, sir, this is the scenario of the scheme in MP.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, that's it, Ainsa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
दी युनिक अकॅडमीचे नवनवीन व्हिडिओज आणि अपडेट्स मिळवण्यासाठी लाईक करा, सबस्क्राईब करा आणि शेअर करा.